I can progress like that. Yes. So I moved here recently from Florida. 30 years ago, I was working in a law firm as a junior real estate associate and seeking the perpetual life-work balance with a busy husband and a baby. I left the law firm and started my own practice out of my living room, which was definitely not cool in 1986. But I got really, really lucky, and my first client was Seaside on the Florida Panhandle, birthplace of New Urbanism, and an amazing place. I've worked for them ever since, and had the opportunity to work on a lot of other projects all over the country and work with some of the best designers and planners in the business. So it's just been a great privilege to have this career that I've had. And a year ago, my husband and I moved to LA. And I started to get involved with the neighborhood councils, and I went to some of the hearings to see what was happening in my own neighborhood. And I live very, very close to the VA in the multifamily part of Brentwood. And I went to a hearing where they were discussing plans to provide homeless housing for homeless veterans on the VA property, which, if you know anything about this property, has been a real hot potato. And I can quibble about the plan, but they've tried. They have created a village-like setting with residential units, and they're going to have all the services that people need there, as well as entertainment and restaurants and things like that. It's on the major bus line. It's in Wilshire, and the subway is coming out that way. So I was listening to this presentation, and somebody in the audience raised their hand and said, you know, you need 2 parking spaces per unit. And I'm thinking, wait a second, this is a joke, right? You know, these are people who are sleeping under the bridge right now with the shopping cart. So I thought, this is a joke, right? I'm thinking that nobody's laughing. And then the next person raises their hand and they say, yeah, it's got to be covered parking. And the next person raises his hand and he says, yeah, it's got to be underground covered parking. So it really got me thinking about this community and its priorities. And I was thinking about this guy, and I'm thinking of all the things that we as a society could or should provide to him. How did this come to the top of the list? So I've been thinking about it a lot. I don't know if, in fact, the VA is required to put 2 spaces per unit, but the bigger problem it illustrated for me was how the neighborhoods feel about projects and how parking gets used as a weapon in these projects. There are 3 reasons why the parking requirement exists. One is because it's the zoning code, and as you heard with the first presentation, this would be a real problem if that initiative passes, because we won't be able to waive this. Banks often require it for projects, and the adjacent homeowners demand it, because if they don't, their view is that if you don't provide enough on-site parking, these cars are going to go into their neighborhood, and this is like the biggest fear that they have. So I've been thinking about this a lot and did some research, and I thought about what would happen if we didn't have to have parking spaces. Yeah, you can save an awful lot of money. I thought, so it's not a free thing. You know, with the apartment building is being built and you're having to put in 2 underground parking spaces per unit, the money has to come from something. And so here's a statistic that I found online that said basically the cost of a parking lot on average in the United States adds $225 per month for rent. So in LA, it's more expensive than the average, and also because these are generally underground parking spaces, I'm estimating conservatively $300 per space added to your rent. Okay? And then, but the problem is that not everybody has 2 cars. This is an excellent website. If you haven't seen it, the Center for Neighborhood Technology has amazing databases and illustrations. And one of the main things that they demonstrate is that when you're looking at affordable housing in a community, it's more important to look at the cost of housing and transportation combined. And that some communities that have very inexpensive housing have very high transportation costs because they don't have public transit. And in fact, the housing is really, you have to look at those 2 things bundled together. But you can also do that in reverse. Some of the early work that was done with location-efficient mortgages use that research that if you are in an area where there's very good transit, then some of the formulas that you use to determine how much of your income you can use for rent or for a mortgage shouldn't apply, because you're not spending what everybody else is spending on a car. So this those lighter green areas, and a lot of that lighter green area in Los Angeles is no more than 1.5 cars per unit. And going closer to 1, the average in LA is only 1.5 per household, but it's pushed up by all those dark brown areas up in canyons where people have, lots and lots of cars. So I see that I've got my 2 minutes coming up. The cost of owning and operating a car in the United States it's lower now because gas prices have gone down, but it's still $8,500 a year, which is over $700 a month. This is my son, the millennial. I'm using him as an example, but he's really typical of what a lot of millennials are thinking about cars these days. And you're seeing very significant decreases in the number of licensed drivers in this age group. And so if they don't even have a driver's license, they certainly don't have a car. My son does have a driver's license, but he doesn't have a car. So I think that you're seeing a real shift in what millennials, what the younger people are looking for. And the housing that we're building now is going to be around for a very long time. So we need to be looking not where we are right now, but we need to be looking out into the future. So, and there's also a lot of people who study this believe that the advent of self-driving cars combined with the ride-share programs that are in effect now will drastically reduce the number of privately owned vehicles in this country. So that when you look out 10, 15, 20 years, when you combine that with the millennials not really liking cars to start with, that we can see that there might be a really drastic decrease in the number of cars. So I know I need to wrap up, but so my idea is that we need to have at least some apartment buildings in LA that are created with zero parking. And the key of this is the second one, which is you only rent to people who do not have a car. There's no constitutional right to a car. It's not a protected class. They can't tell you that you can't have a kid, but they can tell you you can't have a cat. So they can't tell you that you can't have a car. And the beauty of this is that if you only rent to people who don't have cars, then the neighbors can't complain about there not being any parking. Because no matter what happens, these people are not spilling out into their neighborhoods. So I think that there might be a real opportunity here to be creative with housing and come up with a solution that will actually get past the NIMBYs and create much more affordable housing for a big segment of the population. Thank you.